Hey everybody, I'm Sanketh. I work with Janastu and also a little independently, but mostly with Janastu I've been working on this project called COWDeNet, which is community-owned decentralized networks. And we've gotten support from APC and AppNec foundations in 48%, and we've collaborated with uh, uh, an open source open hardware community in Argentina called Alto Mundi, and then with Abbas over here with his Deeproot and mostly harmless. And these are mostly like my gratitude for all these people. And thanks IndiaFOSS for having me here. And so to begin with, want to talk like what is a community network, and why do we need these community networks? Um, Roughly, 48% of the world is not connected, digitally connected, and in India also about 40% is, most of them are not connected, and the connectivity numbers that we show up are also quite skewed. It's mostly on a device count and not necessarily human count. And so one person can have multiple devices, multiple phone lines, and so on and so forth. And it post demonetization and post COVID, connectivity is become a necessity. It's like roti, kapda, makan, or Wi-Fi, right? So it that when our money is going online, when our education is going online, when our basic services like your food grains, everything is behind a technology platform that is again cloud-based, you need connectivity. And it especially the gap where where urban India is fairly connected and we've got reasonably affordable prices, but in rural India it's not the case. And there these essential services are far more important, right? And we would never probably access a PDS shop, but in rural India they need it, and their identity is behind a cloud, and that cloud is not accessible, though they may have plenty of clouds in the sky, right? So we face this issues in one of many of our field areas that we've been working. My interest is, as an engineer, how do I contribute to people that live closest to the environment, who lead the most eco-friendly lifestyle? How can I or our organization better their quality of life and their representation on the web and many other things, right? So here are two use cases actually, that with the communities that we are engaged with. One is the rural area is just 70 kilometers off of Bangalore. It's a popular motorbiking destination, Devran Durga it's called, and on the foothills, it's in a valley, and in that valley, there's hardly any connectivity, just BSNL 2G and some spillover of Geo 4G. And you need to pick your spots to get that geo signal. BSNL 2G is not backed up by any UPS, so whenever power fluctuates, it goes off. And so this is just this close to Bangalore, this close to a popular tourist destination, and no connectivity for like 5 villages over there. And and next use case is a slum here in Bangalore, where you have ample broadband services, fiber services, 4Gs and whatnot. But when COVID hit, most people in the slum, they don't have access to devices that connect to the internet. And most households usually have one phone and one smartphone, and that would be used by their parents or someone who might be a rickshaw driver or a Uber driver or something like that. And the kids there, if they have 3, 4 kids in the family, they'll prioritize only the ones who are in high school, the others drop out of schools, right? And this is because they don't have devices and they don't have, affordability also for this data plans becomes a challenge, right? And so there are these many black spots which fall into our blind spots as computer scientists or computer engineers or technologists, right? And I feel like that is where we need to focus on, and that's what a community network hopes to do. What we want to do as a community network is to have these essential infrastructure as commons, to be built by people who need it, to let the people own it, let the people run it, and for their own needs, right? And if you give it into like Creative Commons and Commons way, then they can do what they want. And so that is one of the ideas of community networks, is for the community to come together and build their own networks. And so we've started with, as I said, in the Durgali area, Devran Durga Valley. And we started with one of the things that Omshev also just mentioned is representation of our Indian languages on the web is very little. And even if it is, it's mostly in text format, and that is very little, and nothing much in audio, video content where our next users of internet lies on, or old generation of people also, they prefer audio, video. They wouldn't prefer text. They're not very textual. Many of them are not comfortable reading and writing, even if they know how to read and write. And so what is the source of content for them on the web? It's very little. It's mostly very English, urban-centric, and things like that. So and the stories that have been told on the net, right? It is not, there's so much folk tales right across this Devran Durga. This area was the Tumkur district was called Devran Durga district. It's only post highways came up and accessibility roads, it became Tumkur district. And so there's a lot of history there, and that history is not known to us. So who will document that history? The local people know their history. So how do we capture that history? How do we capture that heritage, that culture, right? And they're comfortable telling you stories. You go to someone's house, you sit with them, they'll share plenty of stories. How do we capture that? How do we put it on the web? And in that process, we decided like we'll do this radio. We would go with hacked off Raspberry Pis. We conduct programs with the kids. We would record from all these elders and publish it on a website that is served, again, very locally. And to distribute that, we came up with this mesh network where we used Libre routers from the Argentinian team. And it's an open hardware project completely. So we got those routers and we set it up in some 3-4 villages, and we were serving these audio recordings over here. Then we tried it in another tribal village near Kotagiri, Uti. And then this was just before the pandemic, we were doing this work. And then the pandemic hit, and when education went online, when all the basic facilities went online, we had to get internet to our village. And when we did arrange these long hops from Tumkur, a 10-kilometer link, when we established and did get internet onto our mesh network, again, like the devices to access internet is also very less. So then we crowdsourced some TVs, put up Raspberry Pis, and the government school teachers were eager to use this platform, get all the kids to one area, the local diary collection booth they have. They came there, they taught classes using the YouTube video lectures that were shared. And so people could, the kids could continue with their education, then they didn't have to fully drop out, right? And I want you to remember that small picture, it's probably not so clear. It's one of the spots, we've just left it open, the Wi-Fi hotspots over there. And so usually the young boys come together, sit with their own smartphones, and they use that free open Wi-Fi over there. And I would refer back to this picture later. And yeah, so then once school started, now we are looking at how do we gamify this internet access that they have for the community to engage in working for community-related activities, right? And I will explain that a little later. And looking at all these, our work, a doctor who's working, his name is Randall, who's in the photo, and whose photo I've used as my photo in the talk too, in the posters. So he had come down and he wanted to set up something, a similar local Wi-Fi network in Kalandi district in Odisha for Owned Adivasis there. And there's absolutely zero network. There's the nearest network point, BSNL, again 2G, is about 6-7 kilometers, and Geo 4G is probably around 15-16 kilometers. And they've actually mapped on the hill in Google Maps saying that this is the Geo spot available in this valley. And so they would go all the way there to do any of their transactions, OTPs, whatever, and things like that. And but anyway, Randall wanted a local Wi-Fi network because he usually goes to these remote villages, conducts medical camps, and that by the time he returns to a pocket of villages, it would become like 1 month, right? He has multiple areas in that particular Gram Panchayat alone. And so he wanted more frequent updates from the community, from the Swasthya Sathis or the health workers there. And so how does he stay in touch with them? And how do we get health records, updates? It is essential during the malaria season or the dengue season, or even tuberculosis is widespread there. And the Adivasis don't know how to navigate our modern systems, and so they're reluctant to come to clinics or hospitals. So the NGOs and other people have to go there. And how do we maintain their health records and so on and so forth? And also to align with their traditional practices, what all could we do? So to document their traditional practices that has been slowly dying. The younger generation are forced, because of right to education in a way, forced to study in modern schools, and you don't know your local herbs and your local medications anymore. So how do we document this dying practice that was very localized medicines available there? So if we wanted to create a local Wi-Fi network there, one is to keep in touch with the Satis and then to archive traditional practices in this region. And so with that in goal, we set about like engaging deeper with the community to understand how we could get them to work with us and work together. And it was in Tumkur we had a lot of difficulty. The youngsters, as probably others say, they're all aspiring for better money, better jobs in the city, and they want to migrate out because they have been fairly educated, 7th, 8th, 10th. If they study, they don't want to do traditional work anymore, right? And Bangalore, Tumkur industrial area being so close by, they want to head to these cities to work. And so to get them to work in the village was a little hard. Whereas we didn't find that much difficulty in Odisha, in this particular area with these Adivasis, is because they already had a concept called Kutum. Kutum means family, but their Kutum is everybody in the village. And this Kutum would govern, would be your counselor, would be your psychiatrist, would be anything and everything. Any help you want outside of your own personal family is the Kutum. And they would organize local festivals, they would organize all the activities, governing activities, everything. But then, again, when Panchayat Raj Act changed a little in the 1980s, 90s, and it became compulsory for even the tribal villages, scheduled areas to be part of this Panchayat systems, then Kutum lost its power a little bit, and now they're just, party organizers. So any local festivals and all, they come and hold the party, right? But there are still some aspects of Kutum, and so I would like to show you one video of the Kutum activity that they do. It's okay without the audio. It's basically, it was a ragi harvest season that we went. They call it Mandya. It's the millet. And they harvested it and they have to thresh it, right? And this is one side where ragi is harvested, the other side is rice. And together for like 1 week, they go about doing the threshing activity of every family's grains in that village, hamlet area. And as you can see, almost everyone in the village participates in this. From the old, from the very kids, youngsters, teenagers, adults, everyone participates in this activity. It's a fully Kutum activity for threshing the grains. Okay, I'll pause it. And the other popular Kutum activity that you can still see semblances of is house building. And when anyone's house needs repair, anyone wants a new house, if the family is growing, they want a new house, they build houses in an eco-friendly fashion, and that is mud constructions with clay roofs, this khapra, it's called, those tiles, and everybody gets involved in building the house, And this was just before the monsoon, someone's roof needed fixing, and they worked together. But then the government of India has this Awas Yojana. It was called Indira Gandhi Awas Yojana. Now it became Prime Minister Awas Yojana or something like that. And they want to build houses for the poor. And when they come to build houses, they use cement RCC structures and leave such buildings over there, and they are not used by the community. They use that as their bike parking spaces, or just they don't live there. When they live in mud houses, they live in these houses built by the community. Government is giving for free, build it, okay, it's okay. So they they don't, this RCC cement houses is not for them. It is mostly for the contractors. They make the money out of the schemes. And so when we say pro-poor schemes, it's for whom, right? Like they don't want it. And so now how does Kutum navigate this modernity, or how do these people who are rooted in culture, who lead a far more eco-friendly life, how do we ensure that a network like internet doesn't divide them, and it rather increases their cohesiveness, right? Like that's why I wanted to refer to that previous picture. When we gave free internet to the youth in our villages, or even in your own house, probably your parents complain that you're always on your phone, you're not talking to me, we're not talking to our neighbors, we're not talking to what's happening to our own physical next door community, right? We are probably connected to some other online community, but we lose our own touch. Now, we don't want that to happen to Kutum. That is their strength, and that is their lifestyle. So even if we want to bring technology, how do we ensure that it is governable by the Kutum, it can be maintained by the Kutum, and it doesn't break them, And so this level of flexibility, customizability of our networking infrastructure, of our services, is what we want to put in when we design our network there. And these areas, they've not seen, they don't operate a computer. Smartphones, few people have, because they come as migrant laborers to all our coffee estates and cardamom estates in Kerala, Coorg, and all that stuff for their money, for earning money. And so few youngsters in these adivasis, they do have mobile phones, but so they know how to navigate a smartphone, but they've never operated a computer. So one of the key challenges now to ensure technology is introduced in a right way, so then we want to introduce computers. So we want to ensure there's a fear removed from handling a computer or accessing a modern device. So we want to fuse it with local crafts that is available, and local enclosures that they are familiar with, and things like that. So this one of the enclosures, a purse, is basically a bulrush grass that has grown widely wherever water stagnates. And so we've done like weaving with, this was done in Tumkur area. We've done the weaving, and we inserted a Raspberry Pi in that and put some LEDs, and we've asked the kids to go and record, and the adults are also fascinated. Hey, I know how to do this purse. And they open it up, they see the computer, and there's this other enclosure which is Bidri craft, which is popular in North Karnataka, and this other radio device that we built in a house, and that was done in Indonesia when we went there. And they have this luit where they store rice, and they worship rice mostly there. They don't sell rice, they don't use chemicals to rice, they don't use machines to rice, so basically food is free, and their food surplus for 95 years if they stop growing rice right now. And they store it in that device, and that was a memento souvenirs that they do. We keyed in a radio device there. So we want to see how we can customize all this, and that is only possible with open hardware and open software. And you need to have full freedom with what you have, the devices that you have, so that it can be adapted and used in all these places. And we are, I'm an electronics engineer, and I know basics of Arduinos and things like that embedded programming. I don't know network, I don't know this. So we just hacked our way through, we got some support from the Argentinian team. We looked up online forums, and without knowing any layer 2s, layer 1s, whatever, mesh, whatever, we just hacked our way. And so now we want to and we've gotten a lot more requests now to come to many rural areas and put up these networks. And so we want to put up LMSs, like learning management systems, to run classes over there, and relevant classes. We need to create content, and we need to run a lot of self-hosted applications in a local network, not necessarily internet, as you've seen in Odisha, right? And how do we run these local services like Matrix and Nextclouds and Jellyfins and PeerTubes and all that stuff? They all need like this HTTPS certification. You need to have a domain name, and that will expire. I mean, there's no easy way to get it. Let's Encrypt will expire in 3 months. We need a lot of programming backend optimization to ensure like some local services run there, because those are needed. And so we need contributions from the FOSS community, who, if you are willing, if this sounds exciting to work with us, please do ping us and come and collaborate with us. And And as again Om Shiv had mentioned, local language representation on the web is very little, and efforts like this can bring in a lot of content in languages that don't even have a script, and that has been there for centuries. Like, in Bihar there's Magadhi, and they have been there forever, like, and they're just verbal languages. They're all dying now, and so we could get those contexts back up there. And to work in such remote rural areas, we need innovations in power supply management to all these networks. If anybody is in that field, feel free to come and contribute to us. And yeah, that's about it. You can ping me there. Our website is work in progress. What we want to do, what we envision is like all these small, local, decentralized networks coming together, and that becomes the internet, and not like one cloud solution, one IoT sitting on a Google cloud and AWS. And that is not the internet that we envision. We envision a cloud or a web that is made of these small decentralized communities coming together to form the COWDeNet. Kaudi in Karnataka, in North Kannada, is a quilt. It is made from these patches that are stitched together. Spelling is different, but phonetically it is the same, and that's why we call ourselves COWDeNet. And yeah, that's my talk. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah. Yes. So literacy, yeah, we have been marginalized by literacy for quite some time now, with ever since printing press in that sense. And most of our education systems, pedagogy systems, were all oral, and we've not created that space in web so far. But thanks to, again, progress of technology, now we can click, record, publish easily. And that's what we've done with our radio. How do we record? How do we publish? And now we are working on a tool for annotating and easy access of these audio video content. So we're working, collaborating with annotation, web annotation standards, so that we can then access these content easily. And that's been a thing. Otherwise, these talks won't happen, right? Like, why are we organizing conferences if you're comfortable reading, right? Like, literacy is just a small portion, and the focus on literacy has been way too much. And we are not keyed in for it. It's a very artificial effort to become literate, and we also got it confused to being literate mean being educated, and that's also a misnomer. They have far much more wisdom and knowledge than being literate, right? So we want to ensure technology is open for it and accessible for it, and that's also what we're working on. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, we want ownership basically. We want them to get excited. Is like, even if we get like some 2-3 people to run and maintain, that's good enough for back-end maintenance of these FOSS applications. And again, usability of FOSS is a big challenge, to configuring Nextclouds, to configuring Synapse servers in like low computing devices that we can crowdsource and harness, right? Like in second-hand refurbished computers, it actually requires a lot more skill. So that's a challenge. So we would like to collaborate with local engineers. So like in this district, Kalandi district, the headquarters is Bhavanipatna, and they have one engineering college, zero placements, most of them. And many of them during pandemic didn't even attend labs, and they've had to pay fees. And so this, what learning will you have, right? And what opportunity to explore. But they have opportunities to build their own networks, maintain there. You can have one sysadmin job right there, like, maintaining these networks. What is the point of studying there, right? Like, it feels like if you're a school topper in that village, your next role is to leave that village and go to the city. And if you're a college topper in the city, your next natural logical step is to leave the country and go to some other country, right? And that's been the pathways we've been building, and that's not what we want to do. If you're educated, you should contribute to your immediate society and community, and we want to provide opportunities that way. So, in building crafts and merging crafts with 3D printers to CNC machines and things like that. For building a network, I guess like some 5-6 people from the local community, if they show up interest, it's a good start. Yeah. Yeah. So one is to take in their decisions, right? To ensure we understand their local governance structure, to take in their requirements. So many times what happens is, like especially from our learnings and failures or whatever, success and failures in our first project is we got a fund, we had a need, our own NGO had a need, and we got a fund, we built a network in a way, right? Like, yes, students used it, but once the schools opened, now we are struggling, like how do we get community engagement there, right? And we didn't go along with the traditional structures there. We didn't really uh, deal with the power structures there, right? Like, whereas here in Odisha, it's been a good learning for us is that if we go with the traditional structures there, talk to the mukhyas, talk to the kutum leaders there, and if we get them to engage, they will come and build with us. So I didn't put up a slide here or a photo here. Old granny would get water from the down to top of the hill where we had to put up solar panels, and she was getting the water, and the kids were getting all the other materials. They were mixing the cement. The whole family was there, and the other ladies were preparing lunch for us, and the men were carrying the big batteries, lead acid batteries and things like that.